All right. Welcome, everybody. So today I get to have an awesome conversation with John Breimer. John is a recent graduate of the Masculine Leader. We got to have some great conversations before he joined the program and, got to go on a journey together, for a good 4 month period as he was in the program. And today we're just going to talk about his experience, from the beginning, even prior to the beginning of joining the program as he was moving through it and sort of where he's at now, just sort of how his life since he's completed the program. So, Don, thanks so much for joining me today and being willing to jump on this interview
Thank you.
for sure. Anything you want to tell others about yourself, where you are in the world, what you do, some of your hobbies, that type of thing?
Yeah, 55 years old, divorced 6 months ago, almost 7 months ago. Going through a lot of struggles in my life. Came across you and your program, and like you said, had some really good pre-program conversations. And I have three amazing daughters. One, my oldest is almost 21. My middle one is 18, just graduated from high school, getting ready to start college, and my youngest will be a senior this year. I work in a jail here locally as a correctional deputy. Prior to that, I was a paramedic, spent a lot of time, saving lives and helping people, and I still do as much as I can, helping the inmate population that I can when I can give them information and try and help them to move forward in their life. That had some struggles, been going through a lot of struggles, as Andrew can attest to during the program with my divorce. And but this has made me a stronger and better person in the end coming out of it.
Absolutely. And one thing that I'm curious about from your experience as well, being that we've both worked for corrections departments, how do you find that balance between being an officer and, in that sense that you're talking about of also being an advocate or support for the inmates?
It's all in the perspective. I mean, I don't judge people based on their charges there. Yeah, I don't agree with the reasons that some of the people are there, but I still treat them with the respect and dignity and expect the same back from them. You build that rapport with these guys, and in the end, we're all humans. We all have our own struggles, and you have no idea what somebody else is going through, just like they don't know the struggles that I'm going through in my life.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's similar, to my experience as well. Obviously there's times where you have to be very safe and tactical and watch out for yourself and the other officers. And most of the time, there's opportunity to, support those guys, even just with little conversations here and there and stuff like that. So yeah, it's cool to get your perspective on it.
And even if you only impact one, I mean, you're making a difference in their life. And there's too many people out there that I work with that treat these guys like trash because they're wearing those uniform, or the other, if you want to call it uniforms, they're wearing the inmate clothing, and they don't give them respect, or they don't give them any type of dignity or anything, and it just makes it more difficult for everybody. I try and make things as simple as possible so we can all get through and go home at the end of the day to see our family and our friends.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, um, anything you want to share just about like what was life like before we started getting into conversation together?
Oh, well, and I still go through my struggles, obviously, going through the recent divorce, and but everything was doom and gloom. I mean, it was very, I wasn't, my emotions were uncontrollable. I would have outbursts of crying and just, uncontrollable, and, at various times. And it didn't matter the environment, sometimes at work, sometimes in my car, sometimes sitting alone, sometimes around my girls. And I'm able to control that more now. There's, different things that I've been able to do and learn from the program that's been able to help me. A lot of it is just the meditation and the self-care and the focusing on me and being a better person.
Hmm. And okay, so one of the things that you're speaking about before was, as because you when we were talking with each other, you were probably a month out of being divorced. And so, one of the things like you're speaking to, there's just a lot of emotional up and downs. What else were you experiencing though in your life at that time?
Um, just and I still struggle with it, a lot of the money struggles and stuff, now that I'm out of the house, still paying for stuff for my girls and still, paying for part of the house and stuff. So I'm having those struggles, but it's not as bleak. It's still it's something more that I'm coming to grips with and understanding more and able to function every day. Before,
Hmm.
I go to work, I come home, I go to sleep. Go to work, come home, go to sleep. And then on my days off, I sit around the house and, I'm finding I'm working out more. I'm more motivated to do the things around that need to be done instead of just sitting here. Yeah, I need to do this and not doing it. I actually do those things, cleaning up the house and taking care of myself, going to the gym. I bought some weights and I work out in my own house now, do my own routine, and work on, and even if it's not a full workout, I'm doing mini workouts, I call them,
Hmm.
just focusing on myself and take care of myself and my girls. But like I
Yeah.
said before, I didn't have that motivation. I didn't have that want or that will. I wanted everything, focused on my ex-wife and not focusing on taking care of myself. I wanted to do things for her, not for myself.
And so, when you guys were married, was there a similar dynamic for you where, yes, you guys were together, but there was sort of that like survival state for yourself, or even like more simply like that lack of motivation at that time? Like, was there any sort of that in the past?
Yeah, I mean, you sit there and you have the happy wife, happy life, trying to do things for her and, being that yes man and not setting boundaries and um not holding up boundaries, even if you have boundaries, as limited as they may have been, and not, we talked about that several times, me not really understanding boundaries. And I have more of an understanding towards those boundaries and what they mean to me and how important they are for me to have those boundaries.
Right.
There's just a lot of things that, the nice guy syndrome. I wanted to please her. I wanted to make her happy. So I didn't say no. We need to do this. Okay, cool. Let's do that. And it
Hmm.
was never my decision or my choice. It was always what she wanted.
And what was the fear? What was all of that for?
It was the fear of hurting her, the fear of losing her, the fear of, being alone.
Hmm.
And in the end, the things I was doing actually caused that to happen anyway, inevitably. But I'm feeling better about myself and who I am. I know my worth. I know who I am. And, and I can accept that. I've accepted responsibility for the things that I've done in the past. And I'm, moving forward, I still, think about things in the past, but I'm not
Of
living in the
course.
past anymore. I'm living for the moment and where I'm at right now, focusing on
Mm.
me and taking care of me.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. And so, I mean, what a great piece that you're speaking to in terms of like the struggle that a lot of men run into is that there is that fear that's kind of running the show, in terms of how they're interacting with their wife. They're trying to avoid upsetting her or, having a relationship end, and it's totally understandable, but then it creates that dynamic in the space. It creates a
Of
power imbalance.
avoiding the conflict, and trying not to,
Yes.
I don't want to hurt her feelings, but I think ultimately is it me worrying about hurting her or me worrying about hurting myself?
Yeah.
Because I think in the end, ultimately, I'm more focused on if I hurt her, it's going to hurt me when I really need to
Mm.
understand by not sharing things with her, I'm not taking care of myself either.
Yes. Yeah, in a sense, like it's not taking care of the relationship either, right? There's
Yeah,
sort of this nothing to see here mentality, but meanwhile, there's resentment building up and frustration building up, and
exactly.
then that becomes the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too many times of resenting and pushing and not enough pulling and or whatever and and I've different things that people have talked about childhood traumas or we never really talked about in our relationship about us and what we needed or wanted. We focused a lot on our girls and taking care of us and not ourselves and our relationship.
Yes.
And, I'm learning that I need, like I said, I'm focusing more on me and taking care of me. And
It's
if it happens,
amazing.
it happens. The changes that I'm making in my life, maybe someday we'll get back together. If not, it's moving forward for the next relationship that I may have down the road. So
Absolutely.
I don't make the same mistakes.
Well, and you can just you can see the growth, right? You can see the growth in terms of, like you said, this is a lot of these things are what a lot of couples face, right? They put their attention on the kids. They don't put enough attention on themselves, and then there's eventually an erosion of the relationship and of the individuality as well. So thanks for
Yeah.
highlighting that. So what was it like starting to get into conversation together? Like what were some of the things that we were just sort of talking about, and what did you notice about those initial conversations?
With you and me,
Yeah.
um, our initial conversations, I mean, I was very down on myself. I was very, you know, that pathetic little boy.
Mm.
That was my name for, how I was and who I was. I just I blamed myself for everything. I blamed myself for the destruction of my marriage, the destruction of, my family. And, I wanted to fix things. But, after talking to you and talking to some of the other guys in the program, I mean, there's some amazing guys that are in this program that I've gotten to be friends with, that I still talk to and message and, that I've built that relationship with other men. And from another thing that I did, my cornermen, I've brought that
Hmm.
up, those guys that hold you accountable and make you responsible for your actions and what you've got going on and, your goals and your commitments and what you say you're going to do and you don't do it and they'll call you out on it,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling more confident in myself. Before it was, you know, it's my ex, it's my ex, it's my ex. That's all I want is her, her, her. And I think about her constantly. And, now it's like, okay, it is what it is. I hate that phrase, but that's basically where we're at right now. And I can't control her. I can't control what she does or who she's seeing or where she's going. I can only control me in the moment.
Yes. Right. And so, a couple of things that just drawing out of the conversation is that, well, just even speaking to it, like whether it was me, or we'll start with the me, because those were those initial conversations. It sounds like just even having that support, having that, person to be able to talk to, and, be a man that can reflect these things back to you and give you some perspective and help you, sort of navigate this. It seems like that was helpful.
Oh, undescribably helpful. I mean, I can't even give you a
Hmm.
number 1 to 10. I mean, it's 1,000.
For sure.
How much it's helped me. And I have male friends that I talk to. My best friend
Mm.
from high school, I talk to him weekly, if not, 3 or 4 times a week.
Yes.
But, you know, he's on my side because he's my best friend. So his perspective is going to be different than Andrew's perspective or David's perspective or Christian's perspective or some of the other guys in the program that I've built a rapport with or a relationship with that can look at things from the outside and not give me a biased opinion because
Yes.
they love me and they're my best friend. You know what I mean? You
Absolutely.
you need that male community or that male, perspective and even a female perspective. People that I work with, there's females that I've made connections with at work that can look at me and say, well, you got a good point on this, but you also have to look at this. And I'm like, hey, I never really thought about it that way. So
Yeah.
I'm developing a relationship, friendly, not, not intimate or sexual or anything like that, but a friendly relationship with coworkers that can give me a totally different perspective from a female side of it and help me to
Yes.
understand things a little differently as well. Where before I wouldn't even talk to the females about that because of, the taboos of talking to a woman or, she's married or I'm married or whatever. And, you don't want to step on another man's toes and get in, the way I was raised. That's just not something you do. But it's not in a sexual way, it's in a personal way where we can connect and I can get an understanding on it from a different perspective. So yeah, it's helped me to feel more confident talking to people, a guy on the street, just standing there in line, turn around and start a conversation with them. So what do you got planned today? How you doing? How's your day going? You know, and things that I normally wouldn't have done in the past.
Yeah. Excellent.
That
Excellent.
confidence.
Yeah, and again, it's what I really hear in that too is like it's really allowing people to support you, right? And even that's a step. There's many guys out in the world that fear that. They're scared of like, oh, if I share myself or expose my weaknesses, what will this person think of me? And what I really hear you speaking to, it's like not that you didn't have to go through that, but like you see the beauty in sometimes getting that outside perspective actually allows me to have more power and intention in my life.
Correct. And one of the things, Andrew, that actually brought that to my attention was what is it, about 3 weeks ago, we were having a conversation and my statement was, I don't want to be a burden to everybody. I don't want to share my feelings with everybody. And, you know, um, it was like, you're not a burden, that's what we're here for. That's what the group
Hmm.
does for you. You know, it's an amazing feeling when you can not hold everything in and you can let it out and you have that outlet.
Hmm. Absolutely. So what made you decide to join the program after our conversations?
Um, I just, for me personally, I needed to figure some things out for myself and I wasn't able to do it on my own. And having the conversations with you pre-program, it inspired me. It gave me hope for myself. It gave me that
Mm,
inspiration that, your your dedication, your heart involved in all this, it's unmatched, Andrew. I mean, it's something
mm,
that made me feel so, I hate to, warm and fuzzy, but it did. It just, you spoke to me and you made me appreciate myself and who I
mm,
am, before we even started the program. And then just the things that I've gotten out of the program. I mean, and I'll be honest, and as well as I do, there's some things that I need to go back and do. I still have access to those. I want to go back and finish and redo some of the things that I've already done. But it's you, you inspired me.
mm, Thanks for speaking to it. I mean, and I really appreciate that because, it gives credence, weight to, that process in the beginning of those conversations. I don't know that. I don't know that it was inspiring for you and like to help you see yourself. The way that I really just hold those conversations is I'm showing up and just being with whatever is in the space, wherever we need to go, wherever needs to be created. And so thanks for speaking to that. So what was it like stepping into the program and maybe like the first few weeks, the first half? Like just what was that experience like, from the beginning?
Um, it was difficult because I'm not used to opening up and sharing my feelings or my emotions. So, I mean, and you've seen me at my worst. I mean, there's been conversations with you where I couldn't even talk,
Hmm.
and just I've held so much in for so long.
Mm,
And and still I was holding things in and we talked about a lot of things and I still felt like there was a lot of things that I needed to get off my chest, and you gave me that outlet and that availability to be able to do that. And like I said, it was a struggle in the beginning. There's a lot of the group meetings and stuff that we would have where, anybody have anything to say and everybody's silent, and it's just like, you know, and that was, like I said, it was literally like 3 weeks ago when like I said, I didn't want to keep talking about myself and feeling like I'm being a burden to other people. And, but again, you start to understand and you realize, and especially when the guy started telling me that, hey, that's what we're here for. You're not a burden. We understand you. And not everybody's going through the exact same thing I'm going through. Everybody
Hmm.
has their own journey and their own adventure that they're going through and that they're taking. But even if it's not the same thing, you still have a perspective and you still have things. So it was encouraging to be able to get into the program and to start, you know, and it took me some time actually. I mean, yes, I opened up and vented a little bit on certain things, but to really feel comfortable, um, one of the guys that really made me feel comfortable was, talking to you and, another person in the group. I don't know if I can mention his name,
Yeah, go ahead.
David.
Hmm.
I've had some great conversations with David, and he's there, and I appreciate the friendship, the relationship, the rapport that I've developed with him because of your program.
Hmm.
And I've talked to some of the other guys, and they're going through their own struggles, and I still message them, "Hey, I hope you're doing okay." And I don't hear back from them, or I do hear back from them, "Hey, I've been really busy. Sorry I didn't get back to you," and stuff. But we don't as men, a lot of times we don't realize we need that masculine form around us. We need that masculinity, and we need those men around us to vent to hear our side or to be around, just period. Because I focused on my ex-wife and my kids and didn't get out of the house and didn't go do other things. And because of the people around me in this group, I'm able to do that more and feel a lot more comfortable with myself and confident in myself in doing those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and one of the things that I would speak to as well, and I've mentioned this to you before, is like I feel like you were probably the top person I've seen in terms of fostering connection with other men, like actually being like, in almost every call, right? Like, hey, if you guys want to connect afterwards, if you want to, connect as friends on social media, basically like, hey, if you want to talk, like I'm here for you. I would say that it's not that it's rare, but the level of intention that you brought to that and like the fact that, almost every man that was in the program at the time, like I know you're connected to them in some capacity. That was really cool to witness.
And I think that goes back to, my nature, who
Hmm.
I am. Like I said, I used to be a paramedic. And when I was a paramedic, I helped people. And it's still in my heart to want to reach out and help people in any way I
Hmm.
can. Um, and even as a correctional deputy now, I still try and help people and talk to them. I pull people aside and we have conversations. And like I said, it's in my nature to want to help people any way I can. And sometimes to a fault. I mean, but
Yes.
I'm learning that. And that's what I've learned from this program is to be able to differentiate, you know, too much or not enough.
Sure, sure. So, and another thing that I'm curious about, it's by design in the program, but if you can recall at the beginning, we started out with like a major goal that we are working towards, throughout the experience. You're working towards that goal. Sometimes you fell off track. And then in the middle of the program, you and I had a conversation and basically we reestablished like, is that still the goal or are we working towards something else? What was that process like? Like just being in the experience from week one to week 16 and having that, we'll say like structure to help you move towards, what it is that you wanted to create.
Um, I still struggle with, you know, I guess a chronic procrastinator, so I
Hmm.
still struggle with things, but writing things down and seeing them on paper is one of those things that actually motivates me more to do those things than it is to, yeah, this is what I got to do and I've got it in my head. Yeah, I'll do that later. I'll do that later. I'll do that later. So the process of going through those things and like I said, going through the struggles and changing midstream, shall we say, you know, yes, the original goal is to better and improve myself, but there's other things out there that I'm working towards that I'm finding, set attainable, tangible goals, something that you can
Hmm.
accomplish. Don't shoot for the moon because it's not going to happen.
Hmm.
It you need to find things, and I'm finding things, it's yes, I wanted my ex-wife back. That was my goal in the beginning of this program, was getting her back. That was my whole mindset on this whole thing. And going through the process, it's like, okay, wait a minute. Let's set some boundaries. Let's work on boundary setting and stuff and being able to accomplish boundaries and focus on that. And like I said, we changed, you know, I think I told you this. We changed positions in our masculinity and feminine side. I became the feminine and she became the masculine. And I never took that back, but I'm understanding and realizing how important that is in a relationship.
Mm,
And like I said, whether her and I get back together or not, or it's a tool and something I have now to use in my next relationship.
absolutely.
And taking care of my girls and working on them and being able to support them in a better way as not only a man but as a father.
Well, and one of the things that you're speaking to in that is like, yeah, we can have a goal or intention in the beginning, and then, we move towards it, we get off track. But like one of the things that's present is that there's all these other dynamics that are improving or growing or, maybe even getting worse at the same time. But like there's so many things that we can't foresee that gets created, through an experience like this. And the one thing that I'll come back to is that when we had that midpoint meeting, we reestablished like the focus here is for you to be able to understand boundaries and be able to enforce them more in your life. And so as we kicked into that second part of the program, how did that go? What else did you notice, from
I
week 8 to 16, we'll say?
It felt awkward not having or having boundaries
Mm-hmm.
because I had gone so long without having boundaries with her. So being able to establish a boundary and telling her no, it felt weird to tell her no because,
Mm-hmm.
we were together for 29 years and I don't think I really ever told her, no, I can't do this or I'm not going to do that. So yeah, it was a struggle for me. It was hard for me to, to just say no and not give a reason. I don't need to give a reason. I don't need to tell her why. This is how I feel about something and this is what I'm doing and this is where it is. So yeah, it was a struggle because I wasn't used to that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to please. I'm a people pleaser. I'm trying to make things, I want to help people and do things to make it right for them. But, so yeah, it was a struggle. I'm still, sometimes I'm hesitant and, excuse me, I'm hesitant to say no, but I do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And was there any other challenges that just came up through the experience, whether through our conversations or, kind of what you're going through towards the end, like just anything that sort of stood out for you? If you
I
need to
think
grab
one of
some
the,
water, go ahead too.
yeah, hang on just a second.
No worries. So for those of you that are listening, this is really the piece that to highlight here is that yeah, when we set out for a goal, often, when we can actually establish that there's a big goal, a big theme that we're working towards, being present to that there's going to be little things that develop along the way. Sometimes we can't foresee those things. So I wanted to highlight that. So coming back to you, John, yeah, any other like just challenges or things that came up or frustrations that you even had in the experience?
I think going back to the boundary thing was what was stalling me, honestly, in where I was. Because no matter what I said or what I did or where I was at, not having those boundaries or establishing any boundaries at all, it wasn't allowing me to move forward
Mm.
because I was still there for somebody else and not for myself.
Right. Right. Okay. And so, and now, like now that you've been out of the program for about a month now, you're out in the world doing your thing. Like, what are you just noticing about life now? Like, how are things going? How are you feeling about things as you've transitioned out of the program?
Like I said, I still have my ups and I have way more better good days than bad days. Um, I,
Hmm.
you know, I still love my ex-wife. I still care about her. I still want her to be happy. But I don't focus on that like I did. It's it's every day, I can go outside and, not doom and gloom and not worry about what's not getting done or, you know, what I need to do or whatever. There's just things that I know I need to do and I just do them instead of thinking about them now. Before I
Hmm.
would sit there and contemplate, well, should I do this today or should I do that today? Or, I'm like I said, I'm more confident in myself, Andrew. I'm more comfortable with who I am and where I'm at in my life.
It's excellent. It's excellent. And what do you see for the future for yourself from here? Like, what is it that you want to create next for yourself?
I've been working out more and going to the gym and I've got, like I said, weights here in my house that I'm using on a regular basis and stuff. And just right now I'm focusing on the day-to-day stuff. I my daughter's going to college, so yes, that's something that I need to focus on and take care of. But I'm not looking too far ahead into the future. I'm not worrying about, causing, I guess, anxiety because when you start thinking about things, you become anxious. Well, I need to do this to establish that. And for me personally, right now, I'm content working on me for today and for the moment and not focusing on or trying. Yes, there's goals and things that I want to do. I still want to lose some more weight. I still want to, have a relationship with somebody down the road. But right now, my relationship is with me.
Hmm. Yeah, and it might be a good place to go back to for that creating a powerful future, module when you're ready
Yeah.
to, because again, even there in terms of like if you are feeling anxiety for the future, then there's an opportunity there to sort of shift, right? Shift the mentality because that's a place to really connect to in terms of, what is it about future creation that drives up that anxiety for you? What is it that like if you set your sights on a target and you don't achieve it, does that, drive up something for you? Does it make you feel a certain way? So that might be a good place to look at,
Yeah.
going forward.
I think some of that, some of it, thinking about, well, in a year from now, I may still be alone or,
Yeah.
but I don't. And that was the big thing was in the beginning, I thought about that. Well, now I'm alone. Now I'm by myself. Now I don't have that person to connect with or that person to hug or, you know, we're reestablishing a friendship, I guess, with me and my ex. I mean, we can talk
Hmm.
more, we can talk a little different, and maybe she's seeing the changes in me as well, and she's understanding me a little more. And, and like I said, not saying we're ever going to reconnect or be back to where we were, but we still own a house together. We have 3 children together. There's going to be events where they're going to get married. Their daughter's going to graduate from college. They're going to have kids. We're going to need to be around each other and we're going to need to, have to be able to be amicable with each other. So, she needs to work on some things with herself and I'm working on the things that I can work on. Like I said, all I can control is me. And that's what I'm focused on and controlling me and not worrying about what she's doing or where she's at or what she's got going on in her life, other than the times when it affects our children.
Sure.
So, I'm just, the program has helped me to establish that and to be able to develop that.
Awesome. Awesome. And as we start to wind down for today, is there anything else that you want to share?
Um, yeah, like I said, Andrew, amazing you are.
Mm,
The time you spent with me, not only before the program, but during the program, checking up on me, sending me text messages or whatever and stuff. And, I appreciate that genuine, heartfelt connection and that interest in, you know, it's not just a money grab for you.
mm,
you know I'm sure other places out there that's what it is for them, and I didn't feel that with you. Going through money struggles and going through the things that I was going through in the beginning, and you working with me to be able to get into the program, has meant so much to me, and I appreciate you for that, and I thank you for right place, right time.
hmm.
you know Everything happens for a reason. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things that happen and the reason behind it, but obviously me coming across you and us um getting together and me getting into the program. There was a time and a place and everything aligned, the stars, the moon, the universe, whatever you want to call it. It happened for a reason. And I appreciate where we're at and where what I've gotten out of the program.
Mm, yeah, and thanks so much for speaking to it. And you're right. Like, uh, it's quite magical when you think about it. I mean, we're in two different places in the world, and yet life brought us, into the space together, and created what it created, right? And sometimes it's really just trusting that. Is there anything that like if men wanted to connect with you, is there a place that they could do that, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I can if they're in the group, I'm on the group page as well as Facebook. I'll give out my number to anybody if they message me and they want a phone number on Messenger. I'll give out my phone number so we can text or have phone calls or I'm open. If people want to talk to me about the program and what I got, other than what we've discussed today, what I've gotten from the
Hmm.
program, how I feel about the program, you know. And you know me, I was real hesitant in the beginning. I mean, it took me a couple of weeks to pull the trigger and make that decision. And it was just, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, oh, it didn't take you that long. it was like maybe, it's funny looking back on it, but I really appreciate you just being that voice and that the willingness to connect with other guys as well,
Yeah.
into the future.
Messages on Messenger, like I said, friends on Facebook. However, I'll send them my phone number and we can talk, communicate, text messages, whatever. Because anything that I can do to help somebody, like I said, it's in my nature to want to help people. And
Hmm.
even if it's to listen, somebody wants to vent and just wants somebody to listen, I'll listen. If somebody wants to listen while I talk, I can talk. Or if we
For
have a
sure.
conversation where we share things.
For sure.
I'm all ears. I would love to have that opportunity to help somebody if I can in any way.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, there's the invite, guys, so make sure to take advantage of it. Before we close, I want to give you some acknowledgement as well, if you're open.
Absolutely.
First thing that comes to mind is I want to acknowledge you for your courage and your resilience because um, I know how much that experience that you went through at the beginning of the year, how challenging it was, how conflicting it was, how confusing it was. And here you are. It's not perfect. There's still things that you're figuring out. There's still, dynamics that you're having to work with, but like your courage and your resilience shines through. It really shows that like even in the depths, the darkness, that you will still find your way. You will stop, no matter how low it gets, you will still find your way through. Um, I acknowledge you for your play and your connection. I mean, I love the lightness that you bring, even to the coaching experience, right? I can sometimes bring some seriousness and like, some like harshness to it. And I always love that like you would hear it, you would hear the message, but you would also bring that play and lightness to it. Like, hey, we can explore these deep topics and still have fun, in that sense. And you really bring that energy. And I acknowledge you for your love. I mean, your love radiates through, as it shows in connecting with men, in, you know, being a father, being the husband that you were, you know, all of these places, there's so much love that you bring to the world. And I love that that love is being generated back to you, that you're actually seeing the pathways and the openings to create that for yourself, because that's going to make you even more magnetic in the world. That really from you, from your core, that it's just going to generate more into the world and really create more of the life that you want. So thanks for the great conversation today. It was awesome,
I appreciate you, Andrew.
for sure.